I'm a weird dropout because I take college courses all the time. When you have a business that's important as this with this many competitors, you're going to have people saying some nasty things. The thing that was scary to me wasn't quitting and starting the company. It was when I started hiring my friends and they expected to be paid. You really have to believe the internet's going to be mainstream. A lot of people are going to get out there and use it.
You went to Harvard and you dropped out. Have you ever thought how your life could be better off if you had gotten your Harvard degree?
Well, I'm a weird dropout because I take college courses all the time. I love learning company courses and things, so I loved being a student. And there were smart people around, and you know, they fed you and they gave you these nice grades that made you feel smart. So I feel it was unfortunate that I didn't get to stay there, but I don't think I missed any knowledge because, you know, whatever I needed to learn, I was still in a learning mode.
You have for years, ever since you were a little boy, I hear, been called a nerd. Do you care? Does it hurt you?
Well, nerd means a lot of things. I'm somebody who can sit and read a book about science for hours on end, and you know, I don't mind being labeled as somebody who finds that interesting.
There is hardly a day in which something is not written about Microsoft. It has become almost a frenzy. You're being called the evil empire. You forget being called a nerd. You are now being called arrogant, greedy, the devil. You've read all this stuff. I heard that this has been said. What do you say about all of this?
Well, it's a very competitive business. And
that's all?
Oh, no, absolutely. When you have the level of success that we've had, when you have a business that's important as this with this many competitors, you're going to have people saying some nasty things. And so you have to learn a little bit not to take it too personally. When I started Microsoft, I didn't think of it as all that risky. I mean, I was so excited about what we were doing. It's true I could have gone bankrupt, but you know, I had a set of skills that were highly employable, and in fact, my parents were still willing to let me go back to Harvard and finish my education if I wanted to.
You've always got a job with me, Bill.
And the thing that was scary to me wasn't quitting and starting the company. It was when I started hiring my friends and they expected to be paid. And then we had customers who went bankrupt, customers that I'd counted on to come through. And so then I got this incredibly conservative approach that I wanted to have enough money in the bank to pay a year's worth of payroll, even if we didn't get any payments coming in. And you know, I'm almost true to that the whole time. We have about 10 billion now, which is pretty much enough for the next year. Anyway, you know, if you're going to start a company, it takes so much energy that you know it better overcome your feeling of risk. I don't think that you necessarily, if you're going to start a company, should do it at the start of your career. I think there's a lot to be said for working for a company, learning how they do things. You know, if you're young, it's hard to go lease premises. They made that hard for me. You couldn't rent a car when you were under 25 at the time, so I was always taking taxis to go see customers. The people would, you know, people would say, well, we're going to go have a discussion in the bar. Well, I couldn't go to the bar. But you know, that's fun because I'll tell you, when people are first skeptical and they go, this kid doesn't know anything, then when you show them you've really got a good product and you know something, they actually tend to go overboard and they think, whoa, you know, they know a lot. Let's really do an incredible amount with these people. So our youth, at least in this country, was a huge asset for us once we reached a certain threshold. It's hard to hire older people because they'll be a little bit conservative about whether they should come and take the risk. And it took 3 or 4 years before we could go out into the normal sort of employment pool. But those problems that come with starting a firm, you better think of those as part of the pleasure, part of the challenge that is part of the excitement.
My question to you is, if you suddenly found yourself to be, say, a sophomore in college at Harvard, what do you think you would study, and how do you think you'd spend your time engaging in activities?
Well, the thing that you're likely to be world class at is whatever you obsessed over from, say, age 12 to 18. You know, in my case, it was writing software, where I would think I was good, and then I would meet somebody who would tell me I wasn't, and I would look at their code, and I went through 4 sort of comeuppances of, oh, that's what a really good programmer looks like. And part of the reason I worshiped digital equipment was eventually it was a couple of their very best programmers who came and shared with me how they thought about it, how they did things. And I had studied their code, and there were several people who were so key to my doing that. So today, I would go into software, which today that means going into artificial intelligence. Computers still can't read. They cannot take a book of information and say pass an AP test on that book. And that's a solvable problem, but it's a knowledge representation problem. And I've always wanted to solve that problem. I'm jealous that maybe one of you gets to work on that. I'm unlikely to go back and be hands-on in that way, but it's the juiciest problem ever. I've thought about it for a long time. So I would go into AI. Computers, when I was young, were super expensive, and my friend Paul Allen and I actually snuck into places at the University of Washington where they had computers that weren't being used at night. And so we were fascinated by what the computer could do, but very few people were getting exposure. We had to go out of our way, and we were lucky that we did it all. And so then when the idea of moving the computer onto a chip that Intel would make, and that would make the computer literally millions of times cheaper than the ones we were using, so both more powerful and available to people on a personal level, then the idea of, okay, it would be very different. The software you needed, the way the industry would work. We were super lucky to be there when that was happening.